You are listening to the Hammersley Brothers e-commerce podcast. Like what you hear and want to take the shortcut on your e-commerce growth? Join hundreds of brands that work with us and head over to joinhb.com. That's joinhb.com and see how we can help you further. Join our members and smash your targets and unlock the profits within your e-commerce site. Hello Ian, how are you?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, I'm well
This
on this
Bank holiday Monday for you.
Yeah, it's Bank Holiday Monday. So, I was chilling out, messing about, and then you're like, do you do a podcast? I was like, not really. But here we are.
You wanted to do it. I was like,
well, listen, when I have a bank
so much
holiday,
to talk about,
we
Ian.
do it.
That's the problem. So much to
No,
talk
but then
about.
I was, sitting here waiting for you. And you just keep
Come on, bring
chatting.
some energy for your crowd. Imagine there's 20,000 people sit there watching
my dad.
you. Yeah. Waiting for your next titbit.
Well,
I wonder what a
today's good.
titbit is. A titbit? Is that the right word? That sounds ridiculous. Let's have a look. Anyway.
No.
Tidbit?
Move on. Oh, my God. Can we start again?
A titbit. That's a small, tasty piece of food. That sounds ridiculous. Oh, God, so professional. Okay. Anyway.
No comment.
Today we're going to talk about average... we're going to talk about revenue per visitor. We're going to talk about revenue per visitor, and Ian is going to introduce why that's important to e-commerce, and then we'll get into it.
Well, I will. So, revenue per visitor. And the reason we talk about, I wanted to talk about revenue per visitor was because we, in our model and the way we think about growing e-commerce businesses is we split it into three things. The first one is the numbers and how much should we be spending on ads, what's the optimal spend to grow as fast as you can. And that's based on margin and lifetime customer value, and then we look at all the ads. We go deep into the ads. We look at trying to get efficiencies in terms of where we should be spending and what ads to run across all the platforms. And then we look at revenue per visitor. And under revenue per visitor, we put conversion rate, average order value, and email. And the reason we put those together is because they all work together. So the big picture of e-commerce is you have to look at your ads. Obviously, you look at the product and all those things, but once you're up and running, you have to look at your ads, where you're spending, and how good your ads are. But your ads are only as good as the ROAS that comes out of them. And ROAS is return on ad spend, and that effectively is conversion rate and average order value combined. So when people talk about conversion rate and trying to get the conversion rate up, it's wrong. It's wrong to say that. You're actually trying to get the revenue per visitor up, because you might be able to get, if you can get the revenue per visitor up, you're going to make that's where your ROAS comes from. And so your conversion rate might actually go down by 20%, but your average order value has gone up by 50%. You've won. You have a higher revenue per visitor, and you have a higher ROAS. And so we were going to talk about average order value because we thought we created a new model for average order value. We call it a conveyor belt system. And, but I said, hey, look, before we talk about average order value, let's talk about revenue per visitor, because average order value fits into revenue per visitor quite nicely. And the stat that I often throw at people is that the revenue per visitor is simply the conversion rate. Sorry, it's not. It's the it's the other way around. It's the average order. It's the average order value times the conversion rate, because there's a different calculation of doing it. But it's the average order value times the conversion rate. It's a simple one to do. And in the UK, the average revenue per visitor is about £3.50.
Yeah.
So in the US, let's say it's about $5, $4.50, something like that. Now it depends on obviously conversion rate and traffic, and if you got organic, but that's margin, the average. That's what I'm based on.
Yeah.
But no, the revenue per visitor doesn't vary margin.
No, but
what it should be is based on your margin, but
Your margin, yeah.
but
So you have to have a higher
yeah,
revenue per visitor, the lower the
yeah,
margin you have, and all that stuff.
that's yeah. So just to finish my little like position, why what revenue per visitor is, quite simply, when we meet an e-commerce business, they can come to us and say, oh, my ads aren't working, my ads aren't working, my ads aren't working, my ads aren't working. If only I could scale my ads. And sometimes we'll look at the revenue per visitor, we'll look at the conversion rate and the average order value, and we'll go, that is really unoptimized. Those landing pages are pathetic. The website is just not optimized at all. Let's look at revenue per visitor. We get the revenue per visitor right. And then what happens? The ads start working because we're having a higher ROAS from the ads. But obviously we'll do both. We will do both. So it's two-pronged attack.
So what would you say was the easiest to increase out of revenue per visitor? Two factors: average order value, conversion rate. If you just had to do one, what would you? I think lock your door and say, you've got to improve this website, but you can only improve either the conversion rate or the average order value. Which one would you take?
Average order value. Yeah, average order value. Which 10 years ago, I'd have said conversion rate all the time. The reason why I do average order value is it's often much simpler. Because conversion rate, you have to talk about the 6 dominoes of e-commerce: trust and credibility, positioning, navigational flow, job to be done, yada, yada, yada. There's so much depth to increase the conversion rate. Huge amounts of work. Really clever, just, great stuff. We've got a load of work, load of stuff we do on average order, on conversion rate. But average order value is often a lot simpler, and you can have an immediate impact on it. So if your conversion rate increases by 15%, your average order value increases by 15%. It's the same. Your conversion rate goes up 15%, average order value goes up by 15%. It's exactly the same. But if you do both, obviously, then it works really well. So the stat that I always like to think about is if you increase your conversion rate and your average order value by 15% each, and your traffic by 15%, then you get a 50% growth. And if you do 30% conversion rate, 30% average order value, 30% traffic, you double year on year, which is weird, isn't it? I mean, it just sounds too good to be true, but it is exactly what happens. Now, we know traffic is not a problem because we can buy traffic. If you get your conversion rate, average order value up by 30%, buy it. So I think, if I had to do one thing, it would be the average order value. And there's loads of simplicity. What?
I think it's because...
Why I would do average order value?
Well, no. I think why it's sometimes easier to get average order value up is because you're actually working with people who are already buying. So that it's like in any business, it's always easier to get existing customers to buy more again because they know you and they want to buy from you. Whereas if the average order value, you're actually focused on the people that you've already convinced to buy and they want to buy, and so therefore it's easier to try and get them to buy slightly more because you're already working with the elite traffic, people in the traffic who are elite, the people who are really aligned with what you're trying to do. And so if a quick fix, if you go to increase the conversion rate, you've got to go and talk to the people who are kicking the tires, kicking the windows and not doing anything over there. Whereas you increase the average order value, you're just working with the people who are actually already buying. So there's usually quick wins there in the average order value that is that is not as quick with the conversion rate. Although, having done thousands of split tests with conversion rate, that there's things you can always put on a site that tend to increase it.
Like all things, there is the easy low hanging fruit that's so straightforward. And it's the same with conversion rate. It's the same with average order value, and it's the same with email. In fact, it's the same with ads. It's the same with everything. Often 90% of the gains you can do with 10% of the time. It's just obvious low-hanging fruit. And, so from a conversion rate perspective, if you go through the 6 dominoes of e-commerce, you'll see some, every single time we meet a new e-commerce business who joins the level 2 program, we go through the same 6 dominoes of e-commerce and we do the product page checklist, and every single time they've failed. there's easy,
There's
obvious things.
always easy, quick wins, and it's just because the site drifts over time. They might have had it perfect at one point, and then gradually just changed it, and it changes into something that wasn't necessarily as good as it originally was, or maybe it never has been. But there's always things that creep in, and that a good audit can find.
So, can I just say something about average order? So, the question I'd like you to ask me is, before we talk about the model and maybe some businesses that, some examples, ask me what's the fundamental, most powerful thing you have to understand when you're trying to get average order value up. Go on, ask me that.
What is the most powerful thing you need to get up to get your average order value up?
What's the power? Well, no, I think what you meant to say was, what's the fundamental basics of trying to get your average order value up?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah,
go for it.
So it's going with the flow of the river, and what we mean by that is looking at what's naturally happening and making it easier. So one of the reports that we pull off is we look at when somebody buys more than one item, when they buy, 2 or more, what do they buy? And, is it the same product, or is it other products? And you look at that, you're looking at the most commonly bought together things. And when I say this, people will think it's like the frequently bought together stuff. They'll think, oh, it's the app, it's the frequently bought together. People who bought this also bought that. And it's nothing like that at all. It's about understanding exactly what products people buy together. And I give you an example of when you look at the data. I give you an example of a menswear retailer, and you find with men's clothing, when they buy, if you want to get the average order value up, you sell them the same thing again. You don't sell them the matching outfit. You sell them the same navy blue jumper, the same black merino wool jumper, the same white shirt, the same pair of chinos. You sell them the same product again, and that's how you get the average order value up, because men buy the same thing over and over and over again. Now, when I say that, I know there'll be blokes listening to this thinking, yeah, that's exactly what I do. I just go and buy the same thing over and over again. How many navy blue bloody jumpers have you got, or our dad got, or I've got?
Yeah. You just buy you buy more of the same thing, and you go, oh, I'll get 2 of them.
You bought
instead of 1.
Yeah, just get 2 of them.
You make it easy for me.
So you want to, and that's why multi-buys and 4 for 100 and all those kind of things. You see that across loads of men's tailoring businesses. But you don't see that until you look at the data. And then when you look at the data, you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's obvious. That's what we should do. But when you look at, are we encouraging that on the site? Often the answer is no. It's actually quite hard. So if you see people actually buying things in common pairs, and, the frequently, these matches are coming over and over and over again, then you've got to go, well, let's make that easier. If you make it easier with what they want to do,
it's also a catalyst product a lot of the time. And
the first one, yeah.
The first one, it's like, if you look at what people buy frequently bought together, a lot of the products are bought with something else, but there's usually a catalyst product. So, like, let's say people buy the blue jumper, with your bestseller, one of your bestsellers and stuff like that. But that product is then bought with something else. But if you just looked at the data, you'd probably go, well, people are buying that product with that one, but it's the other way around. So there's always an order usually to how people buy as well. So you need to understand what is the catalyst product that then drives the next purchase. Because if you know that, then you can set out the path that they want to go. So it's a bit like having, if you've got a supermarket, you lay out the supermarket based on how people walk around. You don't design the supermarket for the 10% of people who come and buy, £1,000 worth of groceries. You design the supermarket for the 80% of shoppers that shop in a certain way.
Well, it's a bit different. I think it's different. I think that you can't really compare e-commerce to the supermarket, because the supermarket is like all the biscuits are together. And all the milk is together. And so whereas e-commerce is you're coming in to buy just normally one thing, so you've got to think about it in a different way. But
it's very different.
I know what you're
how
saying.
People enter, yeah.
I think
you've got to understand the pathways through your store, how people are treading, and the flows. Because a lot of time when I look at the flow, I'm usually the first person that's looked at it and gone, okay, people are buying this product for the first time. Then what happens? And you go, okay, you've got an incentive to do this, but you already got that incentive. So why, what's the incentive to buy more?
When people be hearing this, and we're talking about, look at what people buy and make it easy to buy other things, they will immediately start thinking about apps and frequently bought together things. And I want to say that's so lazy, and you're not going to get the most out of it. What I have seen time and time again in the businesses that have really scaled, that they've understood average order value in a way that most people don't. And I'll give you an example. In our bedding business, which we're, it's a bit of fun, but we're shooting for 8 million this year, and we might get it, we might not, but it's a bit of a fun business for us because we've got other things going. But the average order value for that is that we didn't just say, if you want to, if you're buying this sheet, do you want to buy the pillowcase and do you want to buy the duvet cover? We went, no, you're going to buy the sheet, you're buying a bedding set. So we actually built a product that's its own SKU that's made up of 5 different SKUs. We put it together. We actually created a product, and I think that's the thing. And and the average order value went from 65 quid to 170 quid.
I think at the beginning it was £45. I think it was originally the average order value was £45. Yeah.
So just think about that.
It's way up there.
Yeah. So when we launched the bedding site, which to teach people, our average order value was 45 quid. Now it's £170, which is like $200. So think about how much that easier it is. Think about how much higher our ROAS is. We're now getting 4 times the return because we focus on average order value, and that to get 4 times the conversion rate would have been nigh on impossible. But we got, if you look 4 at the store, times the number.
There's not really much of that. You buy related products, buy these as a bundle. No. There's not any of those widgets.
No. Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. There's no frequently bought together.
It's just engineering of the actual fundamental product, isn't it?
Yeah. We've figured out the fundamental product. We've done it for you, and I think I was having a bit of a row with a menswear retailer the other day because I was saying that you have to actually build the product. You can't just expect somebody to go and hunt around to go and find, these 2 or 3 products that you think people should buy. When you go, it's there, it's there, they can add them. No, you have to put them together as a pack. You have to actually create the product as a different SKU, as a virtual product with the 3 SKUs in it. You have to actually build it because people are really lazy. They want to be told. In some cases, it's a massive competitive advantage. We're working with a big car parts retailer, automotive automotive parts, and we realised this was one of the biggest guys. They're doing about 80-90 million now, and when we worked with them, they were doing nothing. And we put a service pack together, so for a car, you could go and buy the separate air filter and the separate spark plugs and the separate, whatever else comes, oil filter. And then we just put it together as a pack. We just put it together, and it wasn't even cheaper. It was the same price, but because we'd given people the confidence that this was the same thing about when you're overhauling your suspension bolts and your suspension arms, you put things together, and it just makes it so much easier for people to just go and buy.
If you think about a service pack, right? Say I was going to do my car, and I was like, right, I'm going to do a service. I'm going to do the fuel filter. I'm going to do the spark plugs. I'm going to do this. Like, I might not have change the pump, the petrol filter. Like I might not have done it, but if it's in a service pack, I'll get it because it's there and it's all done for me. And I'll go, do you know what? I'll change the petrol filter at the same time. And so if you do the job to be done for people, you actually kind of lay it on a plate and say, here's the job. Often they'll go and do more of a job than they were expecting to do. Like a lot of people probably don't want 2 sets of pillowcases when they buy a bedding set, but we put it in the pack and they go, well, it makes sense to have 2 more extra pillowcases in the bedding set. Oh, I don't necessarily want a top sheet, but okay, it's in the bedding set, so I'll get a top sheet. That makes sense. So effectively, if you do a better job than if you make the job easier than they would have to do, come on the site and come and add the sheets, the duvet, the matching stuff all the way, and you do it all for them, you can often add things to the set as long as it makes sense. As long as it makes sense for the buying the job to be done. You can actually increase the average order value by selling things that not everybody would buy. And so there's an opportunity there for you to really think about what the customer is actually trying to achieve and helping them to achieve it so that they don't do it. I mean, you don't go into a restaurant and order steak and chips and then they give you the chips over there and the steak over there and you have to put them together. They do the plate of food for you, don't you? So you've got to think about
the restaurant
what
industry
is the
outcome. They're great at average order value, aren't they? And so average order value is, I think, probably one of the secret weapons. It's like your power card. And if you've not really thought about average order value, I think you're in for a treat when we start breaking it down. And not in the next podcast, we'll break it down and we'll tell you what it is, because there's some of all the things that we've done. People obsess over conversion rate. People obsess over ROAS and ads, but nobody talks enough. And they talk about lifetime customer value and retention and recruitment, but nobody talks about average order value. And it is massive. It is massive. So I'm very excited to break it down and go through it over, maybe a series of podcasts, actually, because it's such a big one.
Yeah, it's just an unlock, isn't it? And I think a lot of people who are sitting there and their ads are, skirting on the difference between being unprofitable and being okay, and then wanting to be profitable. Like, there's not often that much in it. There's only subtle differences, and it's like, well, I'm on 2.75 ROAS. I'd like to be on 3, but really I'd like to be on 3.2. There's not that much in it, and it makes such a difference to everything, really.
Yeah. I mean, so we started the podcast talking about revenue per visitor, and we're saying, look, that's absolutely massive. In terms of you want to get your ads to work, you got to get revenue per visitor right. But also, revenue per visitor and average order value is also dictated by what traffic you're driving, so what ads you're driving. So when we in the level 2, we got the tab called the Google Products tab, and it pulls off the ROAS for every single SKU in the last 30, 60, 90 days, whatever time frame we want. And the variance of ROAS by SKU is wild. It is wild, in terms of it's high and it's low, and often it's the average order value that is the thing that is driving it.
Driving it, yeah.
Yeah. And so, if you're listening to this and you're getting your Google, you're just looking at your overall Google ROAS as a number, let's say you're hitting a 6, right? You go, I'm hitting a 6. Okay. And then if you look at this Google, it blows people away when we show them the fluctuation of ROAS that goes high. You got some products that are 2, and you got some products that are 10, and obviously the average is just sitting in the middle, and often it's the average order value. So
what can be massive as well is like you'll have, like, let's say someone's got 3,000 products on Google, like probably 10 of them will actually drive the success of the account and the success of the business, and then you take those top 2 and they drop off for a month, the whole business has a terrible month. And it's like everything is just revolving around this tiny little, like, this keystone, isn't it? The keystone goes and the whole business disappears. And if you're not watching, it's like Warren Buffett says, you put all your eggs in all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket very carefully. You know, you've got to know what those keystones are in the business, because if you get those wrong, your average order value can completely flatline and you could be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's knowing how it works in your store.
Yeah, it is.
How does average order value build? What are the fundamental building blocks of your average order value in your store? And are you monitoring those building blocks to know if something goes wrong, which one of those building blocks has fallen over? That's key as well.
Yeah.
Because there's not much.
It's
there's
massive.
not much, to watch.
I mean, and some businesses that we work with, it literally has been the game changer. You know, we've just focused hard on average order value, and it has been the thing that scaled them to 10 to 20 million. When they were on 1.5 to 2. It has been those. Yeah, it's been AOV. But it's thinking about it in it. I think what we'll be saying will be hopefully thinking about it in a different way. So anyway,
then slapping an app on. Yeah. Awesome.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Ian.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll speak to you
Thanks,
soon.
guys. We'll look forward to. Bye bye.